Opposed, motion passes. Mr. Fernandez, thank you. Moving on to law. We need a motion to approve the appropriation for law by Councilor Scott, seconded by Councilor Yem. Councilor Janess.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Looking through this, I noticed that there's a significant line item for professional services, but at the same time, your department is now fully staffed, if I understand that correctly. So I'm just curious what the use case is for those professional services dollars.
Solicitor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so that increase is a part of the process for workers' comp, where instead of doing that internally, we're going to go out to a third-party administrator, and that's going to pay for that contract.
That was my guess, so I'm glad to hear that's the answer. Thank you.
Councilor Getchia.
Thank you through you to the solicitor. Currently in FY24, a transfer of $25,000 was added to salaries and wages temporary, and only 59% has been used, or $10,000. Why do we need $84,000 in addition to that?
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. Yes, so that is going to be for a new position in our department for a collective bargaining assistant. That was a position that ultimately was decided belonged in the law department.
Councilor Robertson.
So then why didn't we list that under positions, and shouldn't we have put that as a part-time position?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it's a temporary position. So it's sort of, standalone in its own category.
$84,000 temporary seems like a lot of money. That's how long is temporary?
I don't have an answer to that. It could vary. At this point, I couldn't tell you an exact amount of time, months, weeks, I'm not sure.
Okay, I would make a motion to cut $84,000 out of
Second.
the bottom line of law department.
Second.
Councilor Scott.
Could I just ask, could we get a little bit more clarification on what the role is going to be that this person's, expected to be coming on board for?
Solicitor, good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the intent was, as we went into negotiations with all of the unions, that it would be helpful to have someone in this position to get us through, to try and get us through as efficiently as we can, which is sort of why there's a temporary nature to it. And we don't know when all the contracts are going to resolve. We don't know what other ongoing labor relations issues can come up, so it is helpful to have another person on board to help with that.
Would there be a bid process with that? Like, I don't know how that would work. I mean, how did we come up with, I guess, $84,000 for that role? Is there someone in mind for this? Like, I'm just trying to figure that out. Thank you.
Yeah, so there's someone currently in the role right now that is working with the department, and moving forward into FY25, there could still be a need for that. It may not go much longer into FY25. We don't know, but.
Councilor Robertson.
Thank you. If the law department's fully staffed, this is like the first in 20 years I've ever heard of a negotiation specialist at $85K for a part-time position. I mean, under our plan of government, the manager has full discretion during negotiations to assign a team, and who he picks and chooses. I mean, we're pretty well staffed up. I mean, we've been getting competitive with salaries and wages for a lot of our staff members, and now we need to bring on an additional negotiation specialist part-time. I don't even understand where that request came from. Like, we have plenty of staff available to negotiate that are working the day in and day out. So to bring somebody in that's doing it temporarily, I mean, we're going to pay $85,000 for somebody that's only temporary to carry ideas and thoughts of permanent administration into the other room to convey those ideas and thoughts. I can't support that. I would support that motion to cut. Thank you.
Manager, good.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Councilor, to the point, yes, we are fully staffed, but not everyone knows the full history of what's been going on with the CBAs, the historical CBAs. And I don't want to go too far with this and having discussions with CBAs, but knowing what happened 10 years ago on a transfer or a give is something that is extremely valuable to this administration. And that's where we're at. And to continue the labor harmony, or to start anew with labor harmony. Most of the attorneys today that we currently have, they don't have any historical reference as to what had happened contracts ago. And that's really the reason that I think that this is important.
Mr. Mayor, through you to the city manager, a lot of the contracts have footnotes that basically spell out how we arrived at where we're at with any changes over the years. That's what a consolidated contract does. Once it's ratified over the years, there's asterisks all throughout most contracts. I mean, that was always incorporated in the final edition.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through to the council. Council, we've found that many of the contracts were not grouped together appropriately as well. So this isn't exactly, I would tend to agree with you. You want a contract here, here it is. That's not necessarily the case. With the side letters of agreement and other pieces, that is not the case that I'm finding right now.
Councilor Janess?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager, or maybe the CFO, I'm not sure who's more appropriate. It was mentioned that this position, we're speaking about the $84,000. There's somebody already in it. Where did this budget line item exist previously, and did it just get moved to legal, or is this a new line item that's being created?
CFO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor, in FY 2024, when the need arose and when the position was initially funded, it was, I believe, in the finance or city manager? The city manager's office was funding it. We believed it to be more appropriately funded in the law department. And so the funding was requested to be appropriated into the law department in the FY 2025 budget. But the history, if you were to look back at the munis reports, would be in the manager's office.
Thank you. Could you tell, I'm scrolling to find it, but your brain probably works faster on this than my fingers do. What was it budgeted at last year?
I believe this was funded through a transfer, but if you'll give me just a minute, I'll take a look. So the amount, Mr. Mayor, $25,000 was the amount funded in the current year.
And when was that transfer done, do you know?
There was a original budget that was appropriated for $10,000, and then there was a transfer from the salary and wages permanent of $5,000 that happened in August of 2023, FY24. But that's not 25,000. I apologize. It was in the law department. So the $25,000 was transferred in from the salary and wages permanent in the law department within FY 2024. Excuse me. It was not the city manager's office.
Okay, so this is something that's always been in the law department, or at least it was
No.
created in the law department this fiscal year, FY '24.
My recollection is it was created as we began negotiations with the unions for successor contracts within this current fiscal year.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Getchia?
Last year in FY '24, 23, there was no line item for salaries and wages temporary. So did you create a line by transferring out of permanent, just create a line for temporary? Is that how you did it?
Councilor, FY 2024 is when it was funded, not 23.
Okay, so that was at $9,000. It says it was funded at $9,404.
No,
And
in the
then
law department.
transferred in
Councilor.
was $9,000. Oops. Okay. No. All right, I'll get back to you in a minute.
Council Dakota?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Once again, through you to the city solicitor, on professional services, 175, now looking for 275. Can you explain that increase, please?
Mr. Mayor, yes, I think Councilor Janess actually asked that. So that extra 100,000 is for workers' comp. We're moving that from an internal function to a third-party administrator.
To a third party?
To a third-party administrator, yes.
Council Getcha?
I'm sorry, now I found it. Through you to CFO Baldwin. So last year, salaries and wages temporary was funded at zero, and then $25,000 got transferred in there, but there was no transfer out of salaries and wages permanent. There was actually a transfer in there of $110,000. Which is this current year, right?
Yes. Yes, I apologize. It was a appropriation from free cash. I see the detail now that I'm looking into Munis. In February of '24, the council appropriated $25,000 into the temporary salary and wages in the law department. February 28th, 2024.
So that's what so we did a transfer during the year, $25,000 out of free cash over, or your cash, yep, out of the manager's office.
An appropriation.
Thank you.
So does the motion stand still? Roll call? To knock out $84,000 for the law department budget.
Counsel Dakota.
Yes.
Counsel Getchia.
Yes.
Counsel Janess.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
No.
Counsel Mercia.
No.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Counsel Robinson.
Yes.
Mayor Rourke.
No.
Counsel Scott.
No.
Counsel Yem.
No.
Counsel Chow.
No.
Motion fails.